Okay. Then now look at database decision making. In this model, as you've guessed, you're collecting a lot of data. We're doing multiple assessments at various grade levels, and just assessing and collecting the data isn't as obviously good enough. What we have to do is we have to look at it and use it to make decisions. And this sounds like it could be a simple thing, but it's not. One of the reasons why RTI is gaining so much momentum is the problems we've had with our other database decision-making model. Remember how I said that, and down south, it doesn't refer to you, but it's salient to this point, that in order to become eligible for significant services, as LD, we measure your cognitive ability, we measure achievement, and we subtract. And if that score hits a certain number, 1.5 standard deviations, you would be eligible for special ed. Does that sound simple enough? Yeah, well, they did a couple of large-scale studies. One, they looked at a large urban school district, hundreds of thousands of kids, and they found that 80% of the kids who were found eligible for special education that year did not meet the state's criteria. It was done wrong. They looked at an entire state in the Midwest, and they found similar findings. 75 to 80% of the kids didn't make it. So you have these kids who are being found entitled for services, expensive services, that really aren't entitled because someone made a mistake with the system for doing that subtraction. I visited a school once, and they asked me to, I was there because they hired me to examine their special ed procedures and practices and offer suggestions. And when I interviewed the special educators, I interviewed 3 of them in the same building, and all 3 were using a different method to do this little subtraction thing that I talked about. So if you were my special educator, I might be eligible. If you would, I was not. And if you were, well, we don't know. Is it Tuesday or Wednesday? So the whole idea that in this model, we have to develop a consistent way to deal with the data. If we can't even subtract 2 numbers, how are we going to deal with those graphs and those data we talked about? So schools that have adopted this model have set up rules to help them figure out how we're going to make decisions. Now, like everything, not everything fits neatly into the package, but in general, they're using these graphs to help them make decisions. And so that's one of the main purposes of these graphs. But another purpose is helps you organize the data. Suppose I have a youngster and I'm progress monitoring. I might have 6 or 7 or 8 of those little sheets of paper with, I counted up the number that they got right and I wrote it on the corner, and I can either flip through it or look at it or maybe not. But if I have it charted on a graph, it's all right there for me to glance at. And I didn't mention this, but that Ames website that most of the schools I'm working with are using, that automatically generates those graphs for you. You just click on the student's name, and that graph comes up on your screen. And you can print it out, and in fact, you can email it to parents if you like. It allows you to email this graph. So the other thing, these graphs help you figure out the whole notion of formative assessment. As we go along, can I make judgments to how things are going? I remember we kept, a number of times we looked at that line that went like this. And if our data is following that line, we know that we're on target for where we want to be at the end of the year. And then lastly, the whole thing of communicating to your student service teams and to your parents or anyone else who has an interest in the student about how things are going.